Rain fell from the dark sky without stopping for 3 days. Thunder rolled over the mountains. The colony called Scion Outpost was high in a valley, but the water still came. Rivers of dirty water rushed through the streets. Cars floated like broken boats. Homes disappeared under waves of water. People screamed and ran. Some hugged each other, afraid. Ji-hye was a teenage girl, 16 years old, with long black hair pulled back in a wet braid. She stood waist-deep in the cold flood. She was breathing fast, her chest tight with fear. Her clothes were soaked and heavy. But she did not care about herself. She was holding something small in her arms, wrapped in her coat. The thing in her arms was alive. It was small and soft, no bigger than a cat. It had emerald green scales that sometimes looked blue when the lightning flashed. It had 2 thin wings, but they were limp. A long tail wrapped around Ji-hye's wrist, like a scared child holding her hand. Its eyes were silver and narrow, like a cat's eyes, but deeper. This was not a normal animal. It was a dragon, but not like the old stories. This dragon was smooth, bright, and strange. Ji-hye had found the dragon by accident. She went to the research center on the far side of the colony to get emergency power cells. Her mother, Hyun, was the emergency leader for Scion Outpost. Hyun told Ji-hye to hurry back before the last evacuation ship left. But inside the research center, Ji-hye heard a soft cry. It sounded like a flute and a bird together, sad and weak. Shh. She followed the sound to a broken wall. Under metal and wood, she saw it. The dragon, small and shaking, pinned down. Its wings were stuck under heavy debris. She looked around. No one was there to help. The storm was still strong outside. She knew she should leave quickly, but Ji-hye could not walk away. She dropped her bag and grabbed the heavy piece of wood with both hands. She pulled with all her strength, lifting it just enough. The dragon slipped out. It looked up at her, with silver eyes. In that moment, she felt something inside her chest, like a warm light. The dragon was looking at her, really seeing her. She did not know how, but she felt it understood her. She wrapped the small creature in her coat. "Stay still," she whispered softly. "I'll help you, okay?" The dragon did not fight her. It made a low hum like a soft song. Its scales glowed with slow patterns of light. Blue lines moved across its body, almost like it was breathing. With her, Ji-hye stepped back into the street. Rain slammed into her face. Wind howled like a monster. The water was rising higher every minute. The buildings around her were dark. Some were half broken. She kept moving. She could see the community center ahead, lights flickering in the windows. She knew her mother would be there, trying to help people get on the last rescue shuttles. The flood was faster than she expected. Ji-hye climbed over floating pieces of wood and metal. She slipped once, falling hard. She almost lost the dragon, but it squeaked softly and held tighter to her wrist with its tail. She pulled herself up and kept going. Her breath came in short. Panicked gasps. She tried to stay calm. Every time she looked at the dragon's glowing scales, she felt a little braver. The streets were filled with floating trash. A car drifted past, half underwater. She passed a house, missing its roof. She saw a man stuck on a second-floor balcony, calling for help. She wanted to stop, but she knew she could not. She had to get the dragon to safety. She knew in her heart, this was important, more important than anything else. At the community center, the heavy steel doors were still open. People were going inside, carrying children and helping the old. Hyun, Ji-hye's mother, stood at the entrance wearing a bright red rain jacket, shouting orders to the people. She looked tired and scared, but determined. When she saw Ji-hye, her eyes went wide. She ran into the water, grabbing her daughter's shoulders. "Where were you?" Hyun shouted over the storm. "I thought you'd—" She stopped. Her eyes dropped to the bundle in Ji-hye's arms. "What? What is that?" Ji-hye hesitated. She looked down at the dragon. It was calm now, eyes half closed, breathing slowly. "It was trapped," Ji-hye said. "I couldn't leave it." Hyun's face turned pale. She looked at the glowing patterns on the creature's scales. "Ji-hye, we don't know what that is. It's not safe. You have to let it go." "It's scared," Ji-hye said. "It's not hurting anyone. Please." Behind them, other people were watching. Some whispered. One old man stepped forward. His eyes were wide. "Star Dragon," he said with a shaky voice. The stories were true. Loud boom cut through the air, deeper than thunder. The ground vibrated. The sky above split open. Black ships appeared, huge and silent, falling from the storm clouds like shadows. They floated above the colony in a perfect circle. Each ship was dark, shaped like a winged star, and completely silent. People screamed. Some ran inside the building. Others froze, staring up. Ji-hye felt the dragon in her arms start to shake. Its scales glowed faster, pulsing with light. Made a soft, chirping sound. Once, twice, louder the third time. "Get everyone inside," Hyun yelled. "Seal the doors." "No," Ji-hye whispered, her eyes on the sky. "They're here for it." "What?" Owen asked. But before she could finish, the dragon twisted in Ji-hye's arms. It leaped into the floodwater, landing softly. It moved quickly, almost dancing on top of the water, until it reached the center of the flooded courtyard. There, it stopped. It lifted its head to the sky. A beam of white light fell from the largest ship above. The light hit the dragon, but it did not burn or hurt it. The light looked soft, like sunlight underwater. Ji-hye stepped forward, stopping at the edge of the beam. She wanted to grab the dragon, but felt something telling her to wait. The dragon turned its head and looked back at her with those deep silver eyes. For a moment, everything went silent. Even the storm seemed to pause. The light changed from white to gold. Slowly, the ships above began to rise. First, they moved upward like slow-moving mountains. Then they went faster, shooting into the dark clouds. In seconds, they were gone. Silence fell across the colony. The rain slowed to a light drizzle. Ji-hye stood frozen, chest heaving, heart pounding. She stepped forward carefully, picked up the dragon, and held it close to her chest. It hummed softly, pressing its head against her neck like a sleepy child. Hyun stepped outside the door.
Always.
Her face was pale and full of fear. "What just happened?" she asked. Ji-hye shook her head slowly. I don't know. But I think everything has changed." They went inside the community center. The big steel doors closed behind them with a deep thud. People inside were quiet, some crying, some praying. Ji-hye sat down in a corner, holding the dragon in her lap. She watched its scales slowly stop glowing, returning to a calm emerald green. The creature sighed and fell asleep. Her mother sat. Next to her, Ha-yoon was quiet, staring at the small dragon. Finally, she spoke softly. "What you did, it was dangerous, but maybe it was the right thing." Ji-hye looked up at her mother. Her eyes were tired, but determined. "Leave it, Mom. It was alone. It was alive." Howie nodded. Sometimes the right choice is not the easy one. They sat together as the floodwaters moved past the community center. Outside, the rain faded to mist. The colony was ruined. Buildings were broken, streets covered with mud and debris, but inside, the survivors were safe. They waited for the last evacuation ship. Ji-hye never let go of the dragon. Later that night, after everyone was asleep on the floor of the center, Ji-hye woke up. She looked at the dragon resting beside her, its eyes opened slowly, meeting hers. She felt the same deep connection she felt when she first saved it. She reached out and touched its head gently. It chirped quietly. She smiled. She did not know what would happen next. But deep inside, she felt that the dragon would change everything, and that she was now part of something bigger than she could ever imagine. Outside the community center, the clouds parted for the first time in days. Moonlight fell across the flooded colony, turning the water silver. The dragon lifted its head to look at the moon, eyes shining with soft blue light. Ji-hye leaned back against the wall, feeling the small creature's warmth at her side. For the first time since the storm began, she closed her eyes and felt hope. She did not know it yet. But high above in the dark sky, eyes were watching her. And 15 years later, those eyes would return. 15 years passed since the night Ji-hye saved the small dragon during the Great Flood.
Oh, yes.
In those years, Ji-hye's life changed completely. She finished school and joined the Concord Alliance, a group of planets working together for peace. People respected her intelligence and courage. She worked hard, always remembering the dragon she had saved. Now, Ji-hye stood inside Harmonic Station, a giant space station floating high above Earth. The station was bright white with long halls and big glass windows. Outside the window, Earth looked small and beautiful. Clouds drifted over blue oceans. Lights from cities twinkled in the dark. It looked peaceful. But Ji-hye's heart was not peaceful. She felt worried. Her hands rested behind her back as she watched the stars. Ji-hye was no longer a teenager. She was Administrator Ji-hye, one of the most important diplomats in the Concord Alliance. She wore a silver-gray uniform that showed her rank. Around her neck, she still wore the dragon's scale, a bright, warm gem that glowed softly even after all these years. She never forgot the dragon, Harin, who disappeared soon after that stormy night. The scale was the only thing left. 3 days ago, everything changed again. Alarms went off all across the solar system. Hundreds of unknown ships appeared near the edge of the system. They were dark and shaped like stars with long wings, moving silently in perfect formation.
Oh.
No one knew who they were or what they wanted. They did not answer any messages or show any signs of weapons, but the people of Earth were afraid.
News.
Channels showed images of the black ships, and people started to panic. The military got ready for war. Fighters and defense satellites moved into position. The Concord Council held emergency meetings. Some leaders called for immediate attacks. Others wanted to hide. But Ji-hye felt something different. She watched recordings of the ships moving in the dark. The patterns were strange but familiar. They looked like the lights that once danced on Harin's scales. She remembered that night 15 years ago, the dragon standing in the rain, calling the ships with its chirps. "These are not enemies," Ji-hye said in the council meeting. Her voice was calm but strong. "They are coming back. They remember." Some council members laughed at her words. Others called her foolish and dangerous. They thought she was crazy to believe in old stories, but Ji-hye did not care what they thought. Deep in her heart, she knew the truth. The dragons were back. A soft voice broke her thoughts. It was Du-yeon, her young assistant. He stepped into the room, holding a data pad. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear and amazement. "Get Administrator," he said quietly. "The fleet has arrived in orbit." Ack! They are not attacking. They are waiting. Ji-hye took a deep breath. She turned to face him.
Are they sending?
"Any messages?" she asked. Du-yeon shook his head. "No words, no signals. But one ship is moving forward. It is coming directly toward Harmonic Station." Ji-hye's heart started to beat faster. She felt both fear and hope. "Prepare Dock Bay 3, she said. "I will meet them myself." Du-yeon's eyes widened. "Alone?" he asked. His voice trembled. Ji-hye nodded. "Yes, alone." She walked through the long, bright halls of the station. Her footsteps echoed. Lights above her head turned green as she passed. She tried to stay calm, but her hands were shaking. She remembered that day in the flood. She remembered the dragon's silver eyes looking into hers. She touched the glowing scale on her necklace for strength. When Ji-hye reached Dock Bay 3, the big metal doors stood closed. Red lights flashed on the walls. She stood in front of the doors and took a deep breath. "Open the dock," she said. The doors hissed and slid open slowly. Cold air rushed inside. Outside the dock, space was black and endless. A single ship floated silently just beyond the station. The ship was smooth and black, shaped like a dragon with long wings folded at its sides. It glowed faintly with soft blue light, looked alive. The ship moved closer, but did not land. It hovered outside the open dock. Then slowly, it opened like a blooming flower. A ramp extended toward the station. Ji-hye stepped forward, standing. At the edge of the dock, she did not show fear. From the ship, A single figure appeared. It was not small anymore. The dragon, Heron, had grown into a giant. He was longer than a shuttle, with wings folded along his back. His scales shimmered with silver, blue, and gold light. Strange lines moved across his body, like a living map of the stars. His eyes were still silver and deep, filled with intelligence. Ji-hye did not speak. She stepped forward, close enough to feel the dragon's warm breath. The dragon lowered his head slowly, until his eyes were level with hers. Then she heard a voice. It did not come from the dragon's mouth. It was inside her mind, clear, soft and strong. Daughter of water, you kept your promise. You saved me. Ji-hye's eyes filled with tears. Her voice shook. I didn't know you would come back. Thought you were gone forever. I never left, the dragon said. I learned. I grew. I returned for you. Behind Herin, the space around the ship shimmered. More dragons appeared, bigger and older, wings, wide like floating mountains. Their scales glowed with patterns that looked like galaxies. They moved slowly, gracefully, until they formed a circle around the station. Each dragon lowered its head toward Ji-hye. You saved the last of our kind, Herin said. You acted without fear. You showed kindness when no one was watching. It awakened the covenant. Ji-hye blinked, confused. The covenant? It is the law of our kind, the dragon said. Long ago, we left this galaxy. We chose to sleep until a human showed true compassion. That would be our signal to return and serve. She stepped back, feeling dizzy. Serve, she whispered. Herin stepped aside. More dragons floated forward. Their eyes glowed as they looked at Ji-hye. Their minds spoke together, many voices joining into one clear thought. You showed mercy when you could have run. You chose life over fear. You passed our test. You'll be named Empress of the Covenant Worlds, the first human to hold the seat of light. Ji-hye gasped. She shook her head quickly. No, I didn't ask for this. I'm not. Ready to be something like that? Herin looked deep into her eyes. You were ready the day you lifted me from the flood. You showed what it means to be human. All around the dock, officers and soldiers stood behind safety glass, watching in silence. They had never seen anything like this. Some had tears in their eyes. Others were frozen in shock. Ji-hye stepped forward and reached out her hand. She touched Herin's scaled cheek. The scales felt warm and alive. She closed her eyes. Memories of the flood, the fear, and the hope came rushing back. She remembered the tiny creature she saved. She remembered how alone it had looked. I'm just Ji-hye, she said softly. A girl who didn't want someone to die alone. Herin's wings shifted slightly. And now, he said, you are Ji-hye of the stars. Your choice changed us. Will change your people. From far behind Ji-hye, loud cheers erupted. The station's communication channels had spread the meeting to Earth and the Concord worlds. Billions watched as dragons bowed to a single human. People on Earth who were afraid minutes ago now cried with joy and relief. On Earth, armies stood. Down. Ships moved away from battle positions. Families hugged each other. News reporters shouted excitedly about peace and miracles. Across the Alliance, everyone realized the dragons were not enemies. They had returned to follow the one who showed them what it meant to care. The dragons floated around the station like silent protectors. Their scales glowed softly, painting the stars with new colors. Ji-hye opened her eyes. She looked at Herin and the other dragons. She felt strong, even as tears rolled down her face. Will you really follow me? She asked quietly. We will follow you, Empress, Herin answered. Because you showed us that compassion still lives among humans. Ji-hye smiled softly. She squeezed the glowing scale on her necklace, feeling its warmth. The last piece of the dragon she saved so long ago had brought them together again. She felt ready. She stepped forward side by side with Herin, facing the stars. Everything had changed. Future would never be the same again. But Ji-hye was not afraid. She was ready to lead, with kindness in her heart, and dragons by her side.